Today we are discussing a statement that has attracted considerable attention within the Iraqi Dinar community. The statement comes from an individual named Tom, who was asked what kind of exchange rate could potentially be seen if Iraq were to move away from its current official exchange rate of approximately 1,310 Iraqi dinars per US dollar. In response, Tom shared a personal opinion, stating that he believes a future real effective exchange rate, or REER, could exceed Kuwait's exchange rate of approximately 3.26 US dollars. While this comment has generated excitement among some dinar followers, it is extremely important to separate personal opinions from official policy announcements, and to understand what this statement actually means within the broader context of Iraq's economic reforms. Before diving into the analysis, it is worth emphasizing that this statement represents an individual's opinion and does not constitute an announcement from the Central Bank of Iraq, the Iraqi government, the International Monetary Fund, or any international financial institution. That distinction is critical because exchange rate policy is determined through official economic and monetary decisions, not by commentary or market speculation. As responsible analysts, our goal is to examine what such statements could imply, what economic factors would need to exist for significant currency appreciation to become possible, and why investors should always rely on confirmed information rather than assumptions. The first point to understand is the difference between Iraq's current official exchange rate and the concept of the real effective exchange rate. Iraq currently operates under a managed exchange rate system. The Central Bank of Iraq manages the value of the dinar against the US dollar as part of its monetary policy. This approach is designed to promote price stability, support imports, reduce excessive currency volatility, and maintain confidence in Iraq's financial system, while the country continues implementing banking and economic reforms. The real effective exchange rate, commonly referred to as the REER, is something entirely different from the official exchange rate quoted at banks or exchange houses. The REER is an economic indicator used by economists to measure the value of a country's currency relative to the currencies of its major trading partners, after adjusting for inflation. It helps economists determine whether a currency appears relatively overvalued or undervalued based on international competitiveness. Therefore, when people discuss the RER, they are referring to an analytical measurement rather than a publicly tradable exchange rate. This distinction is important because there is often confusion within online discussions surrounding the Iraqi dinar. Some people mistakenly assume that a higher RER automatically translates into an immediate official exchange rate increase. In reality, the RER is only one economic indicator among many that policymakers evaluate. Even if the RER suggests a stronger underlying value for a currency, governments and central banks still consider inflation, foreign exchange reserves, fiscal policy, banking stability, economic growth, international trade, investment flows, and overall financial stability before making any changes to exchange rate policy. Looking specifically at the comparison with Kuwait, it is understandable why this attracts attention. Kuwait possesses one of the strongest currencies in the world. However, Kuwait's exchange rate reflects decades of economic development, substantial sovereign wealth, relatively low public debt, consistent oil export revenues, disciplined fiscal management, and a mature financial sector. Simply comparing Iraq's potential currency value with Kuwait's current exchange rate does not necessarily mean Iraq will automatically reach or exceed that level. Every country's monetary framework reflects its own economic conditions, institutional strength, and policy objectives. At the same time, Iraq has made meaningful progress in recent years. The country has continued working on banking reforms, digital payment systems, anti-money laundering measures, customs modernization, financial transparency, and increased cooperation with international organizations. These reforms are designed to strengthen confidence in Iraq's financial system over the long term. As confidence grows, foreign investment can increase, banking activity can expand, and economic diversification can gradually reduce dependence on oil revenues. One reason many Iraqi dinar followers remain optimistic is that Iraq possesses significant economic resources. The country has some of the world's largest proven oil reserves, considerable natural gas potential, a strategic geographic location connecting regional markets, and a relatively young population that could contribute to long-term economic growth. If these advantages are combined with successful governance reforms, infrastructure investment, stronger private sector development, and improved financial institutions. Iraq's economic outlook could continue improving over time. However, economic potential alone does not determine currency value. Stable institutions, predictable government policy, efficient banking systems, diversified exports, manageable inflation, and investor confidence all play major roles in determining how international markets perceive a currency. Therefore, any discussion regarding future exchange rates must be viewed within this much broader economic framework. Another factor worth considering is the central bank of Iraq's priorities. Central banks generally seek stability rather than dramatic fluctuations in exchange rates. A sudden and substantial currency appreciation could create unexpected consequences for exporters, government budgeting, public spending, and overall economic competitiveness. Monetary authorities typically prefer gradual, carefully managed adjustments that align with broader economic objectives, rather than abrupt changes that could introduce uncertainty. For Iraqi dinar followers, this means it is important to pay close attention, not only to discussions about possible exchange rates, but also to the underlying reforms taking place throughout Iraq's economy. Banking modernization, improvements in payment infrastructure, expansion of digital banking, customs reform, anti-corruption initiatives, investment legislation, energy sector development, and private sector growth often provide more meaningful insights into Iraq's long-term economic direction than isolated predictions regarding future exchange rates. One of the strongest indicators of long-term economic progress is increasing confidence in the banking system. As more businesses and citizens choose to use regulated financial institutions instead of relying heavily on cash transactions, the banking sector becomes more efficient and transparent. This supports monetary policy, improves financial inclusion, facilitates lending, and creates a stronger foundation for sustainable economic development. Foreign investment also deserves attention. International investors typically evaluate political stability, legal protections, infrastructure quality, regulatory transparency, labor markets, taxation, and financial stability before committing significant capital. Continued progress across these areas can gradually strengthen investor confidence and support broader economic expansion. The energy sector remains another cornerstone of Iraq's economy. Oil exports continue generating the majority of government revenue, enabling public investment in infrastructure, healthcare, education, transportation, and economic diversification projects. Over time, successful diversification beyond oil could reduce vulnerability to fluctuations in global energy prices and contribute to more stable long-term growth. Inflation management is equally important. Stable inflation helps preserve purchasing power, encourages investment, supports consumer confidence, and enables businesses to make long-term planning decisions. The central bank carefully monitors inflation because maintaining price stability is one of its primary responsibilities. Any future exchange rate decisions would almost certainly take inflation into account. International cooperation has also become increasingly significant. Iraq continues working with global financial organizations on improving financial governance, strengthening regulatory frameworks, enhancing anti-money laundering standards, and increasing banking sector transparency. These efforts help integrate Iraq more closely into the international financial system, while improving confidence among global institutions. Returning to Tom's statement, it is important to remember the wording that was used. He specifically said, "In my personal opinion." Those four words matter because they indicate this is not an official forecast or confirmed policy direction. Personal opinions can stimulate discussion, but responsible financial analysis requires distinguishing between opinion and verified information. For viewers following Iraqi dinar developments, the healthiest approach is to view comments like these as part of broader conversations rather than definitive evidence of future policy. Exchange rate decisions involve numerous government agencies, central bank officials, economic advisors, and financial experts. They are based on extensive economic analysis rather than isolated predictions. In the short term, Iraq's economic outlook continues to depend on several interconnected factors. Oil prices remain important because they influence government revenue. Fiscal discipline affects budget sustainability. Banking reforms influence financial stability. Security conditions affect investor confidence. Infrastructure development supports productivity. Political cooperation enables legislation that can strengthen economic governance. Each of these components contributes to the country's overall economic trajectory. Short-term expectations should therefore remain grounded in observable developments, rather than speculative rate targets. Announcements regarding banking reform, investment agreements, customs modernization, payment system expansion, anti-corruption initiatives, and improvements in financial regulation often provide more tangible indicators of economic progress than discussions focused exclusively on future currency values. Looking further ahead, Iraq's long-term prospects depend on maintaining reform momentum. Successful economic diversification could expand manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, tourism and technology sectors alongside oil production. Higher private sector participation could generate employment opportunities, stimulate entrepreneurship, and broaden the country's economic base. Education and workforce development will also play increasingly important roles. Investing in human capital enables greater productivity, innovation, and competitiveness, all of which contribute to stronger long-term economic performance. Countries with well-trained workforces are generally better positioned to attract international investment and develop high-value industries. This Draskov remains another essential component. Roads, ports, electricity networks, telecommunications, water systems, and logistics facilities improve economic efficiency and reduce operating costs for businesses. Continued investment in these areas supports domestic commerce while strengthening Iraq's position as a regional trade hub. Financial technology represents another area of opportunity. Digital payments, electronic banking, mobile financial services, and modern payment infrastructure can expand financial inclusion while reducing transaction costs and increasing transparencies throughout the economy. As these systems continue developing, they may strengthen overall confidence in Iraq's financial sector. Another consideration involves international trade relationships. Expanding trade partnerships beyond energy exports can improve economic resilience and reduce dependence on any single revenue source. Diversified exports create more balanced economic growth while supporting currency stability over time. For Iraqi Dinar followers, patience remains one of the most important principles. Structural economic reforms often require years rather than months to produce measurable results. Banking modernization, regulatory improvements, infrastructure development, legal reforms, and institutional strengthening are long-term processes that build economic resilience gradually. Financial history demonstrates that durable currency strength typically reflects strong underlying economic fundamentals rather than sudden policy announcements alone. Sustainable appreciation generally follows improvements in productivity, investment, trade competitiveness, fiscal management, financial stability, and institutional quality. This is why professional economists spend considerable time evaluating data, rather than relying solely on predictions. They examine inflation rates, employment trends, foreign exchange reserves, government budgets, trade balances, banking sector performance, investment flows, industrial production, consumer confidence, and numerous other indicators before drawing conclusions about a country's economic outlook. For viewers interested in Iraq's future, these indicators often provide more valuable insights than isolated exchange rate discussions. When multiple economic indicators improve together over an extended period, confidence in the country's long-term prospects generally becomes stronger. It is also important to recognize that currency markets are influenced by global conditions. International interest rates, commodity prices, geopolitical developments, regional economic performance, and worldwide investor sentiment can all affect exchange rate dynamics. Consequently, Iraq's currency outlook cannot be viewed in isolation from broader global economic developments. The comparison with Kuwait, therefore, serves primarily as a reference point, rather than a prediction. Kuwait's exchange rate reflects decades of economic policies and structural characteristics unique to that country. Iraq's path will be determined by its own reforms, institutions, economic performance, and policy decisions. Responsible analysis encourages viewers to focus on confirmed developments, such as official central bank announcements, government economic policies, published financial data, banking sector reforms, and verified international agreements. These provide a much stronger foundation for understanding Iraq's economic direction than unconfirmed rumors or speculative projections. Ultimately, Tom's statement reflects optimism regarding Iraq's future economic potential. Optimism itself is not unreasonable when supported by ongoing reforms and improving economic conditions. However, optimism should always be balanced with careful analysis, realistic expectations, and respect for the complexity of monetary policy. As Iraq continues modernizing its financial system, strengthening governance, improving transparency, expanding digital banking, attracting investment, and developing infrastructure, the country's long-term economic prospects may continue evolving positively. Whether those developments eventually translate into changes in exchange rate policy will depend on official decisions based on comprehensive economic assessments rather than individual opinions. For Iraqi dinar followers, the most productive approach is to remain informed, monitor official announcements, understand the economic reforms taking place across the country, and evaluate developments within their proper context. Responsible analysis focuses on evidence, verified information, and long-term economic trends rather than speculation alone. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi Dinar update. If you appreciate responsible, balanced, and factual coverage of Iraq's economy and the Iraqi dinar, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates. As always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice, investment advice, or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any currency or financial asset. Always conduct your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.